Hi friends, this is Chris. Welcome back to the channel. I want to give you an update on the stock market and let's jump right in. So you can see here the bubble stocks. Tesla was down, Nvidia was up. Tomorrow all eyes are going to be on Nvidia, and in fact they have their earnings. I believe it's after hours. You can read the headlines here. Stocks churn as Nvidia's 1,000% rally to face test, and this is nuts. Essentially we've all been buying this one particular stock, be it your index funds or you're buying it individually. We're all in this thing. And talking about the S&P 500, I think it was like some crazy number, like 40% of all the gains in the S&P 500 were in Nvidia. Nvidia makes up, I think my understanding is about 6% of the S&P, but it makes up a large chunk of its gains. The other thing is too, a lot of people are into Nvidia with leverage, bro. So essentially, you're looking at big moves going either direction after earnings, either 10% up or 10% down. That's what the options market is betting. Moreover, Goldman Sachs, this is a quote from them, they are saying Nvidia is the most important stock on planet Earth. And you can also see this here. Remember the Magnificent Seven group, the company has been responsible for 1/3 of the Nasdaq's 100. So it is a major portion of the Nasdaq, the major portion of the S&P 500. Will Nvidia keep it up? I showed you guys this before. We'll look at it again though. It's interesting because it did change a bit. What is Wall Street expecting? So you're looking at 60 cents a share, basically. It was interesting because I thought, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we looked at this like yesterday, and I thought it said 58 cents per share. So maybe Wall Street's expectations went up. That's what I remember. We just looked at it yesterday. You can check the old video even. I'm pretty sure it was like in the 50s, but now we're saying 60 cents per share is what we're expecting. Now, Nvidia in the past has beat their earnings. You can see we've had 4 beats in a row. This is sort of like your dark blue is your estimated, your light blue is your reported. However, they're beating by less, and you can actually see it in the numbers right here. So again, this coming into earnings now, we're looking for like 60 cents per share, which is kind of similar to what it was last time. And they beat earnings last time by about 13%. Now, look at the number on this far right here. This is by how much they're beating earnings, right? So they used to beat sort of your earnings estimate or Wall Street expectations, how you want to say it, by 38%, right? Then 26, then 16, and 13. And so it's getting harder and harder for them to beat expectations. Moreover, and guys, we just looked at it yesterday. I swear I saw 58 cents. You guys, again, correct me if I'm wrong. You can check the video, but I swear I have a pretty good memory on this stuff. And also too, I remember these kind of things because I always have to do the math in my head. So for example, last year they had 25 cents per share. And then, okay, if they're expecting 50, that means they're expecting double of last year. And I remember it was a little bit over double, so 60 cents per share. I think Wall Street up their estimates. So we'll see and we'll watch on that. Nvidia does trade a little bit expensive. You guys can see this. I mean, it's got a P of like 70. However, their growth is there, which is your PEG, which is like fantastic, right? It's under 1. That's been this past year, and then looking forward, which is estimates. So take the estimates, take the forward estimates with a grain of salt. It's still around 1.25. So we'll see where it comes in at. When you have your PE around 70, so you're expecting that kind of growth, around like 70-80% growth in your earnings. So we'll see. Also too in the markets, guys. So I have not been following the story that much. This is the super micro one. In my humble opinion, I think it's been a bubble. And so I'm not surprised. If you read the headlines here, Supermicro falls as Hindenburg takes aim with short report. Hindenburg often does, they do reports on sort of your bubble stocks in the market. And, I don't know their exact win rate, but I'll just say they have a pretty good track record of picking out the bubbles and saying, hey, time to pop. So basically they're saying there's some sort of accounting fraud or something like that. I wouldn't doubt it, to be honest. I wouldn't doubt it. Now, do I know exactly what's going on in Supermicro? No, I don't, but I wouldn't doubt it. There was something too that happened before. This was back, I think they were saying 2020, but let me read this here. So it says, this is from Hindenburg. The investigation into the company revealed, quote, glaring accounting red flags, evidence of undisclosed related party transactions, sanctions and export control failures, and customer issues, right? That's from Hindenburg. And then Supermicro, they responded, does not comment on rumors and speculation. Not really much of a defense. But this is what I was mentioning before. In 2020, they had some sort of, what do they call this? It says investigation by the SEC. accounting and disclosure things, and then I guess they just paid a penalty and decided to move on. So I wouldn't shock me if that's what we're facing here. Maybe that's just part for them. That's just part of doing business. I would be very careful with this stock myself. I think, like I said, I think it's one of the bubble ones, or meme stock. So depending on when you got in this thing, right? So if let's say you were fantastic, you got in January, you're up say 90 some percent, right? If you got in like a couple years ago, I think you're up, it's kind of Nvidia kind of numbers. However, if you bought at the top, which is back in March, you're down 53%. So this is a very, very volatile stock. I don't think it trades on fundamentals, and now you got a short report. So be careful with that. That would be something I would look out for. I noticed this as well, and it's kind of interesting. You can read the headlines here. Home prices hit record high in June on S&P Case-Shiller Index. Basically, house prices are going up. You guys probably know that. It's about 5% nationally, but it depends on what market you're in. So some markets might be 7% up, some might be 9%, some may be a little bit flat. And it's interesting because we actually were just talking about this yesterday. My wife and I went to a baseball game. And if you saw the video, you can just see it, just the last video. We were filming there and talking about home prices. I don't expect home prices to go down. The basic gist is we need to build more houses or increase regulations, and all different kinds of things. You can watch our video on that, but that's what's up with that is home prices are, again, they're still going up. And I'd like to hear from your guys' markets where you are. I think there's a few markets that have been going down, maybe like in Austin, Texas, like your really bubbly ones. Florida, like the Miami area, I think that's a bubble also, but I don't know if they've been crashing. And again, you guys can tell me just on the ground of what you've been seeing. And then I know that other bubble areas would be like your Denver area, Coeur d'Alene. I mean, whether or not, like, for example, Seattle or LA are in a bubble, it just keeps going up. Like it's not, I guess it's not a bubble if it never pops, right? So I always laugh because it's like, for those of you who know these, areas that just real estate is going up and up and up, it's just nuts. And it seems like, okay, there's got to be a point where, it can't do that anymore, but yet it still does. So anyway, so prices are up 5%. The other thing too, I want to point out to you guys, I thought this was an interesting story. I saw this a couple of days ago, so I haven't mentioned it till now. One of the issues I think is a big problem in our economy is as sports betting gets legalized in more and more states, and states basically have your sports lotteries or things like that. Because when I was in Oregon, the sports betting thing, it was like done through the Lotto Commission, and it was interesting. It was like they give you a list of like all the games, and then you would just pick ones that you think are going to win it. So it wasn't like what we have now with your DraftKings or FanDuels or whatever. I think it was done through the Oregon Lottery, and some people are actually pretty good at that stuff. I don't know how much you could win on these things, but I'm bringing this stuff up because these kind of things, I think it's a flaw in our system. Essentially, what you're doing is you're siphoning off money, and oftentimes from people who are low economic groups, and then basically taxing them in a way. I had a friend in college, one of my best friends actually, and he would always call this the idiot tax. So it's a little bit mean, but be careful with this stuff, guys. I understand for some people this stuff is entertainment. I'm just kind of showing you these things because some of the states they just use it for the general fund, some use it for education, some use it to fund casinos, if you can believe that, which is kind of crazy. Some use it to fund their professional sports teams. And this has always been a question that, like I said, I'm using Oregon as an example. When they introduced the Oregon lottery, and the sports betting is kind of related to that, people are always going, so why are the schools always asking for money when you have this lottery? So I can't answer for Oregon, but I do question these kind of things. And for me, it's like, in order to keep our system going, are we all playing the lottery? But again, I thought of this story when I was talking about the super micro, because this is the element of the market that won't go away anytime soon, be it corruption, be it bubble stocks, be it memes. And will Nvidia stick or go away? We're going to find out tomorrow. Another big story too, which I want to go over with you guys, is what's going on in China. So every time we check on them, it's always something negative. Not in a good way. Essentially, Pinduoduo, and I think Temu is under them as well. So basically, online shopping. Their stock crashed. I think it was like some crazy number, like 29%. And essentially, they just have too much competition, right? That's the way these games are played. If you see that one company is making a bunch of money, it's hard for that company to maintain dominance forever. And you'll actually see a bunch of other companies jump in. They want a piece of the pie, and if too many companies jump in, right, there's less pie for everyone essentially, and your profits go down. So you have the competition, and then also too you have the Chinese economy is slowing. You got to pay attention to this stuff because, again, I always mention the same thing. If you're into American companies and say Apple, for example, so they're doing their event. I think it's September 9th. They're going to announce all their new AI-driven phones, and you need people to buy said phones, right, to make money and keep the stock going higher. But if they're struggling in China, and that's why you look at individual earnings, then who's going to buy said phones? The one thing that sort of how we don't get surprised by things is that when you track the news every day and you look at sort of what each company is saying, you're not surprised by when, say, there's a jobs revision that suddenly there was a downgrade. If you guys remember that, and it was like the biggest downgrade in jobs in since 2009, and you sort of look out for this stuff. So like I can see China slowing down. I can see there's some corruption with the Supermicro, and then now we're going to see sort of what Nvidia says, and Nvidia that they're basically going to say, okay, guys, selling chips is profitable. Companies are still buying from us, and then going to get a projection going forward. And then we want to see how Apple does with their event. Are they going to have good enough products that are going to attract people? A couple news from Apple: their CFO stepped down. And the other question is going to be is how long is Tim Cook going to stay? So Tim Cook's the CEO, but their CFO just stepped down and just bringing in some new blood. I think the CFO, I can't remember how many years, but they had been here at Apple for quite a long time. And it's actually interesting because it was just a week before where it was like the head of the App Store also stepped down. So like I said, they maybe change of management around there as they're going to try to figure out, okay, how can we sort of be the innovative company that we once were. Other thing that's going on in the market, and this is all related, guys. It's all related. Be it, you remember your Chinese consumer slowing down. This is in the USA. Low income consumers have been struggling for a while, but now we're starting to see more, higher income consumers struggling. And so then basically you ask people, how are you feeling about the future? Are you spending money, not spending money? And people say, hey, I'm, cutting back a bit. So the lower end have been struggling for a while. And then the upper ones are starting to like, okay, I'm going to cut back a bit, and I'm going to sort of look for more discount options. And this shows up actually in company earnings. So for example, Nordstrom said that their Nordstrom Rack is doing okay compared to their other one, right? It's still growing. And this basically tells you, hey, customers are trading down a bit. You'll see this kind of stuff a lot, right? Where you're still shopping, right? You're still consuming, but just not necessarily spending as much. And the other thing too I want to show you is, guys, and I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. Consumer sentiment is up a little bit, but it's up from its low. So it's still, at low levels. I think they were saying something like, was it the highest in 6 months or something like that? But it's not like consumer sentiment is super high. It's just up because it's been at low. And there's some optimism on if Kamala Harris will win the presidency now. There is some partisan stuff here. If you're on the Republican side, and thinking that Kamala's going to win, you feel like the economy is going to go downhill, and you don't feel so comfortable about your purchasing power or your sort of how can I say? Because when you talk about sentiment, it means like, hey, I feel okay about my job and I feel okay about buying a dishwasher, right? That's the kind of thing, big purchase. If you're on the Democratic side, you feel a bit more positive and upbeat. You say, oh, Harris is going to win and things are going to go better. And if you're independent, you split more towards Harris. But it is actually quite interesting how it is a partisan question. And, this is funny because this kind of thing, and I always talk about with you guys with this stuff, when we ever mention politics or Tesla stock or whatever, meme stock that we're talking about, is always try your best to remove emotion from any particular decisions. Because if let's not talk about names of presidents, right? Let's talk about president at all, but regardless of who president is, you should just be honest. This is my finances. this is how much money comes in. This is how much money goes out. This is how much I'm saving every month. This is how much I'm investing every month, right? This is how much I owe and how much I need to pay off. Like, these numbers should be like disconnected. It shouldn't necessarily be connected on who's president. You should just make those decisions independently. And that's why I'm saying don't necessarily base this all on emotion, but people do, which is kind of funny how it's a partisan issue on, how you're feeling about whether or not you should buy a washing machine. Anyway, that's a long discussion. I know it opens a whole a can of wax, but I do just think this stuff is worth mentioning. The last thing I want to show you guys here is kind of themes that's been going on in the market. Artificial intelligence, what's the consumer doing, how's inflation, are we going into recession, and supply chains. And it's actually interesting because it kind of shows, if you look at this chart here, orange is AI, so that's the one that's sort of been trending on the upside. Right now, this is in terms of like, what people talk about in earnings calls. Right now, the consumer is the big one. And so this kind of fits in with everything else that I've been showing you guys. What's going on with the Chinese consumer? What's going on with the American consumer, right? Are people shopping or not? And then after that, is AI making money? So anyway, so that's what's up. Nvidia earnings are tomorrow. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. Again, the options market is saying plus 10% or negative 10% tomorrow. This is a major stock in the market, so expect big moves and volatility. Always appreciate your time, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next video.